Welcome to this rapid revision exam skills video looking at paper 2, Superpower Relations and the Cold War. This time we'll be focusing on question 2, which is the narrative account question worth 8 marks. Firstly, let's consider the Pearson Edexcel paper 2. Traditionally, this is split into two topics. There's a British depth study, e.g. Anglo-Saxon and Norman England, circa 1060 to 1087, and there'll be a European or wider world depth study, such as Superpower Relations 1941 to 91, and that's the topic we'll be focusing on in this video. In the past, these have been provided as separate booklets answered within the same exam, and I expect that to be the same this year. Total time allowed for this is 1 hour and 50 minutes, and that's the total time for both booklets, the British depth study and the European and wider world depth study. That's for both sections, so manage your time carefully. Let's have a look at how you go about answering the narrative account question. Let's have a look at this sample question. Write a narrative account analysing the key events of the Berlin crisis 1948 to 1949. Take notice of that date range. It is important for succeeding in this question. You'll be given some stimulus points to help. You may use the following in your answer: Stalin's fears and the airlift. You can actually get full marks without mentioning either of these things, but it's always a good idea to do so if you are able to, because you know that these things will definitely be relevant, otherwise they wouldn't be in the question. But look, you must also use information of your own. For this question, you'll need to explain the story of how something happened. You'll need to do it in chronological or time order from earliest to latest. You'll need to explain how one event leads to or causes another, and your answer will need to result in an outcome. You'll be marked out of 8 marks. This is split in two. AO2 is about the analysis of causation, consequence and change. And also there are 4 marks for your knowledge and understanding of features and characteristics. You should aim to spend around 12 minutes on this question. Let's have a deeper look at the mark scheme. Now we've got to grips with the question, let's have a look at the mark scheme. I'm not bothering with level 1 because we all want to be aiming higher than that. So instead, let's have a look at the differences between level 2, which can get you up to 5 marks, and level 3, which can get you up to full marks. Firstly, look at level 2. You'll be showing some organisation of material into a sequence of events leading to an outcome. So that's got to be in chronological order, and you've got to have some sort of finishing point. Compare that to level 3. You organise material into a clear sequence of events leading to an outcome. Not much difference. So where are the rest of the marks coming from? The account of events shows some analysis of the linkage between them. In other words, linkage between these events. Compare that to level 3. It analyses the linkage between them and is coherent and logically structured. That means that your events are in chronological order, but also they are well spread throughout the date range and they make sense. They're all linked together. Some passages of narrative may lack coherence if you're in level 2, but that won't be the case in level 3 because it is coherent and logically structured. In terms of knowledge, for level 2 you'll be showing some knowledge compared to good knowledge for level 3. Okay, let's have a look at a sample assessment piece. Take a look at the question once more. Make sure that all of your events come from this date range, 1948 to 1949, otherwise they won't get any credit. I'll also point out to you where I've used parts of the stimulus points. You want to start with an early event, preferably at the start of the date range that you've been given. I'm going to use this structure: point, example, explain, and then in purple I'm going to show my linking phrases which are helping me to show how one event leads to another. So let's get into it. Firstly, in March 1948, the British, French and American zones of Germany joined together to form Trizonia. This economically separated West Germany from East Germany, forming a greater divide between Soviet and Western zones. The intention was to rebuild Trizonia, later West Germany, along the lines of Truman Doctrine and the Marshall Plan. As a result of this, the Soviet Union stormed out of talks intended to settle the division of Germany. The creation of Trizonia played into Stalin's fears that the West was ganging up on the Soviet Union and the Eastern Bloc. And notice I've used one of the stimulus points there. So where are my marks coming from? Well, I'm showing both AO1 and AO2 using my explanation in the point. I've got a lot of AO1 in the example. I've got a bit of both in the third section, and I'm largely explaining with a bit of extra knowledge in the last. But on its own, this is not a narrative account. It's just one event in a sequence of events that we need to go through. So for the next bit, we're going to be looking at a middle event. We're going to use the same structure again. In reaction to this, in June 1948, Stalin closed all land routes to West Berlin. His intention was to humiliate the West by forcing them to give up the western zones of Berlin. However, the Soviet Union was unable to close the air corridors into West Berlin, as shooting down Allied aircraft would be an act of war. Consequently, the Allies organised a massive airlift of supplies to West Berlin. And look, there's the other stimulus point. The Allies were successful in supplying West Berlin, and the Soviets did not intercept Allied aircraft, or at least they didn't shoot them down. In January 1949 alone, British and American aircraft delivered 170,000 tons of supplies to Berlin. So again, you can see that I'm using my knowledge and my explanation throughout this middle paragraph. But I can't get full marks without giving a definite outcome, so I'm going to use a later event at the end of the date range for the next bit. And I'm already getting that way. You can see at the end of this paragraph I'm mentioning 1949. So what outcome am I going to go for? As a result of the successful airlift, Stalin was forced to reopen the land corridors to West Berlin in May 1949. This climb down was a significant humiliation for Stalin. It made him appear to be the aggressor. Later in August 1949, West Germany elected a parliament in Bonn, with Konrad Adenauer as the first Chancellor of West Germany. In response, the Soviets created the German Democratic Republic with a communist government in East Germany. And here's my outcome. The main outcome of the Berlin crisis was the creation of a divided Germany, with West Germany in opposition to communist East Germany, with one supported by the West and the other under the influence of the USSR. And again, I'm using my knowledge and I'm explaining as I go through. So we started with the underlying causes of the Berlin airlift, we moved on to the Berlin airlift, and then we looked at how the division of Germany was made more permanent. That is a narrative account analysing the key events of the Berlin crisis across the time period 1948 to 1949. Now it's over to you, if you want. Here are some Superpower Relations practice questions. Question 1. Write a narrative account analysing the effects of the wartime conferences 1941 to 1945, the stimulus points being Yalta and the partition of Germany. The second sample question. Write a narrative account analysing superpower relations with Cuba 1959 to 1962, the stimulus points being the Bay of Pigs and Fidel Castro. Your third go. Write a narrative account analysing the ways in which superpower relations developed during the period of détente, 1972 to 1975. The stimulus points being the SALT I Treaty and the Helsinki Accords in 1975. And lastly, write a narrative account analysing the ways that the Soviet Union collapsed between 1989 and 1991. The stimulus points being the fall of the Berlin Wall and the fall of Gorbachev. Let's sum up our final points about this question. 8-mark narrative account questions can be a challenge, but they're easy enough to master with a bit of practice. You will need specific knowledge and be careful to keep your examples within the stated date range. You will need to explain how events are linked. This involves explaining how one event causes or leads to another. You'll need to write a chronologically organised answer, so that's in time order from earliest to latest. So start with an early event, have an event in the middle, and finish with an overall outcome. Good luck! That's the end of this video. I hope it's been useful to you, and if it has, please do like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you need any more help, pop it in the comments below. I'll see what I can do.